3, 2.
Hey guys, I'm Chris Gardner from The Hollywood Reporter, and I'm sitting with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You know, we're doing this special Hollywood Reporter series called Meet Your Emmy Nominee, but I don't know if I have the power to change the title because everybody knows you. There's no meeting or introductions needed here with you. Everybody knows you and loves you.
Well, that's a wrap then, folks.
Yeah, that's it. You have the power to change the title. But Emmy voters know you as the most winning Best Actress in a Comedy in the history of the Academy. So do you, at this point, do you still celebrate the nominations?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, there's always a sense of foreboding when the day is coming out when they're going to announce nominations, and you never know. I mean, there will come a day when you're not listed, and it will be very sad. But I mean, it's not a done deal.
Yeah, and you seem to always manage your expectations really well. But
yes.
But what's amazing for this show in its 6th season, heading into its 7th, is a lot of comedies start to show fatigue around that time.
Yes.
But not Veep. It's as sharp and as funny as ever.
Thank you.
Of those 17 nominations you got this year, is there one besides your own that was particularly lovely for you to hear?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what wasn't lovely? Not to hear, but we got 2 writing nominations on our show for Billy Kimball and for Dave Mandel. Dave Mandel is not only a writer on the show, but he's our executive producer. And I was delighted that they got nominated because I think it's the writing on the show. As much as I would like to say the acting is, it's all about the acting. In fact, it really isn't. It's about the material itself. And these guys just hit it out of the park. So I was so thrilled that they got recognized. But I mean, Matt Walsh and Tony Hale and our production design team. I mean, the list goes on. Oh, and we have first-time director on our show, Morgan Sackett, got nominated, and it was the first time he directed our show. So, I mean, it's been an absolute festival of delights for us. Yeah.
And the episode that you submitted, groundbreaking, the last episode
yes.
that David Mandel wrote and got a nomination for.
Yeah, for writing and directing.
Yeah, and was that episode was so fun for watchers of the show, such as myself. Was that your favorite of the season?
Well, it's hard to really pin a favorite, but I loved it because we got to sort of peel back layers, and we did all of this, what's it called, flashbacks. And that was, as an actress, an absolute gas to perform. So we had a scene in which Selena's giving birth to her daughter, and that was unbelievably fun to do. And I even sort of put my hair up in a scrunchie.
That's great.
A little bit Elaine looking, I think. And it was just, the whole thing was an absolute gas. And you know who was on that show? It's Emily Rutherford, who was on The New Adventures of Old Christine with me, and she was in a flashback scene. Anyway, it was fun to sort of peel back layers on all the characters in this particular episode, which was fun.
And to bring up or show parts of her story that have been referenced many
yes.
times. So if we're going to talk about flashbacks and we're going to go there, we have to go to the spa. How fun was that scene to shoot?
Please. It couldn't. If that scene had been its own show, I would have been happy about it. For those who haven't seen, it was a scene in which, after Selena loses her bid for the presidency, she goes away to a spa, they refer to it as, but it's sort of a place for mental, shall we say, rejuvenation. And she's in a bad way and heavily medicated and possibly even addicted to the medication. So it was really, really a gas to play. And I kissed this guy, David Pasquesi, who's an amazing actor who plays my ex-husband. He comes to visit, and I did sort of a porno
with lots of tongue.
Lots of tongue. I warned him beforehand, but I thought I would just go for it, and it was pretty cool.
It was very cool and very wet.
Yeah, it was foul. I can barely watch it.
Let's go back to the Emmys. I'm curious as to what other nominees, outside your show, are there other performances you really love this year or shows that you're really in love with?
Yes, Big Little Lies was amazing, and I was riveted, and I thought there were incredible performances in that show. The final episode of that was just, we were just glued to the television. I thought all the performances across the board were extraordinary. And I also adored The Crown and cannot wait for that to come back. Claire Foy, yeah, she's just the bomb. So I just for starters, yeah, a lot of good TV out there.
So much good TV. And are you a binge watcher? Can you?
I am.
You do?
Yeah, I am. Recently, I've binged a show called Happy Valley, which I highly recommend, and that's from the BBC. And then I also just binged Last Chance U. And if you haven't seen that, you are dead. You've got to watch that.
I'm going to watch it
It's
tonight.
a documentary series. Yeah.
I'm going to watch it tonight before I die.
Good.
Speaking of Emmy night, let's just do some more Emmy night questions. What's your strategy? Do you have a drink minimum? Do you have a certain time you have to be home by? A maximum number of parties that you can hit in one night?
No to all of the questions.
No strategy.
All bets are off. On that night. I'm not somebody who likes to be honest with you. I'm not a staying up late kind of person for the most part. And so I maybe go to 2 parties and then go home because usually we have to work the next day. Although in this case we don't, which is awfully nice. So maybe I'll be out later. Maybe I'll go to every party in Hollywood.
As you should.
Actually, I'm going to do that.
We'll meet you there.
Yeah, I'll drink all the booze, go to every party.
And then let's talk about some Emmy nights that have passed. We're asking a bunch of people such as yourself to remember their favorite or crazy, or their most favorite, or their craziest, their funniest, their most touching Emmy night that they've had that we didn't see on TV. Something that happened either from one of the nights that you won or one of the nights you didn't.
Well, here's a night I didn't. The first time I was ever nominated for an Emmy, which was for Seinfeld, I had just given birth to a baby a few weeks prior. And let's just say the dress was a tight fit. And as the limo was out there waiting to take us to the thing, and I was getting dressed, and as they were zipping into my dress, the whole thing gave way. Yes. And we had to improvise and figure out a way to sew me into it. Oh. So the whole night I was in an absolute panic about this thing splitting, which it didn't. But I also had just given birth, so I was breastfeeding, so I had to go and pump on the commercial break. So I wouldn't say it was the most glamorous night of my life, but it was certainly challenging. And I lost. So it's just golden.
Wow. One of the things that I do love about you, when you do win, you manage to somehow be prepared while also being authentic and staying in the moment. You know, you go up there sometimes with notes, but do seem very present, and it's always touching and or funny or amazing. What's your strategy there? How far in advance do you start sort of thinking, if I may win, here's what I want to say?
I don't strategize in advance. It's pretty last minute. Because I'm pretty superstitious about all of that stuff. I mean, like there was one year, well, that's not entirely true. Maybe if I have an idea and I think it's pretty funny, like there was one year I did a bit with Bryan Cranston, and we sort of thought it up the day before. So we were on the phone back and forth, trying to work it out. If I lose, if I win, if he would be a part of this, et cetera, et cetera. So that worked out pretty well. But for the most part, it's very much a last minute thing. Yeah. In fact, wait, I'm just going to tell you one more thing. The first year, I'm pretty sure it was the first year that I fortunately won for Veep, in the shower getting ready for the Emmys on that day, I had this idea to do with Tony Hale, where he would come on stage with me. So I got out of the shower and I texted him. I said, "You've got to call me right away, emergency." And he called me, and I told him the idea. And he thank God, he thought it was a good one too. So we did that. That was really fun.
And you pulled it off. It was really funny. And it's funny for me. I was in the audience that year, and it's just such a nice moment because, you know, it's unexpected and it's a break from.
Good.
Yeah, it was great. So hopefully something equally surprising should you make it to the podium this year.
Yeah, I don't have any ideas.
Now, let's talk about the show a little bit. I know that you guys are breaking stories, or we're in the process of breaking stories. I saw on Twitter that you've met with some people already.
Yes.
John Dean, White House special counsel during the Nixon administration.
Yes.
What was that meeting like, and have there been others?
Oh, there have. There have been multiple meetings. And I'll tell you, the meeting with John Dean was like, well, for instance, Dave Mandel, who's our executive producer, it was a government major at Harvard, said it surpassed any class he ever took at Harvard. I mean, it was I could have sat with John Dean for hours. He was so honest and open and without airs, and so entirely intelligent and with a great perspective on where we are now in American history, and it was just phenomenal. We also recently met with Jon Favreau, who was Obama's speechwriter for many, many years, also fascinating, and the list goes on. But it's always extremely useful when these very kind people take the time to come and talk with us, because it really it helps us from a story point of view.
Yeah, and do you always come out of those meetings knowing specific plot points or directions of the show that you want to go?
Well, not necessarily, but it's just sort of mind expanding when you're thinking about human behavior and political culture. The more you know, the more it can sort of infuse the creative engine. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And even because it's not like we're taking this fact and plugging it into the show, but you can morph things in a way. It's just a very mind-expanding experience, hugely useful. Mm-hmm. And that's been the case from day one on this show, by the way.
Wow, it's really impressive that you get all of those people year after year.
Yeah.
And one of the things that'll be interesting for next year is you've given Selena the presidency and taken it away. Both of those things could be an option as we move forward, as she runs yet again. How do you continue to find the funny as Selena moves towards potential presidency?
Hopefully we will continue to find the funny. I mean, the whole idea is this is a woman who doesn't quite get what she wants. And if she does get it, it isn't quite what she thought it would be. So that theme has to be in place. And if it's in place, I think we're okay comedically.
You do find your way to the funny in some very sensitive areas. David Mandel told us that he couldn't believe you guys got away with the speech in Qatar about female genital mutilation.
That was a dream of mine. We have got to do female circumcision and make it hilarious.
And you guys did it, so congratulations.
Thank you. That's a real feather in our cap.
Is there something that you've said on the show that you can't believe you got away with, or something that you said, you know what, this is just too much?
I can't believe we get away with about 50% of this stuff. In particular, I was a big fan of our Selena Meyer's library is in the shape of a vagina. And I was a particular fan of saying, you know, where we should put the men's room right here at the clitoris, they'll never find it. I still think it's funny.
It still is really funny. And also, did I see this right?
And sad, by the way.
And true. Like I would know. Anyway, do you...
Take my word for it.
And then I saw your wrap cake was in its shape of that library.
Yes, let them eat cake, baby.
One of the many highlights for me earlier this year watching the NCAA March Madness tournament was just seeing you being such a proud mom on the Jumbotron and supporting your son with Northwestern.
Yes.
What was the highlight for you of that experience?
Well, the fact that Northwestern, I also went to Northwestern, as did my husband. So the fact that Northwestern made it into the tournament, which is the first time in their history, and that our son is on the team, and that it's our school. I mean, the whole thing was just, we couldn't believe any of it. So we couldn't have been more proud, and it was history making and thrilling and very moving, really, ultimately. And it's such a good team. There's such great kids on the team, and my son's having a gas. So I mean, what more could you ask for? It was amazing. I mean, I wish they hadn't put me on the Jumbotron so much, because you're really there just as a mom. But anyway, that's part of the game, I guess.
I can only imagine what it was like for you to see him actually get some playing time too.
Oh,
which was
forget
amazing.
about it. Yeah.
And he had such a great reaction to it. I loved his locker room interview, which...
Wasn't it fabulous?
It was so amazing. And just as a journalist who asked people questions, he did it in he showed that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. His mother and father are both extremely funny people. But what was that like for you? Obviously, you know that he's funny.
Well, I know that he's funny, but you need to know that he called me and he said, "Hey, Mom, I'm doing some behind the scenes interviews stuff." I said, "Oh, that sounds like fun, honey, blah, 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 blah." Next thing I know, I'm watching ESPN, and there's my boy Charlie interviewing people. I had no idea And Charles Barkley introduced him. So I was like, I'm actually glad I didn't know, because then I would have been wringing my hands thinking, what's he going to say? How's this going to go over? I need to be there. I have to edit it. I've got to tell him what to do, But anyway, he was fine. He doesn't need me, it turns out.
I think he probably will ask for more advice later. But
I'm not sure about that, by the way.
What if he asked you for some advice on going into entertainment? Is that something you'd want him to pursue, either sports commentating or comedy?
Oh, anything is fine with me. As long as he's having a good time, I don't care. That's the truth. Really, I'm not kidding. Anything is fine. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I want to talk to you about Twitter. You've been actively engaged on Twitter,
yes,
talking politics for some time. But I did particularly love your tweet just this week about your grandfather, which showed the personal side of what's happening in our country this week. I wanted to ask you what led you to that moment, and you can be private and sometimes, but posting that seemed right and real. So why did you do that?
Well, I did it because my grandfather, who was French, who lived to the age of 103, by the way, and was Jewish, and was a part of the French resistance during World War II, particularly when France was occupied by the Nazis, and he was a fighter during that time. So I'm very proud of that fact, and I wanted to post that as a reaction to this crap conducted by neo-Nazis and white supremacists and so on. So that's why I did it.
It was great.
Thanks.
And how do you find your way in everything that's happening? Do you have limits to how much you get on Twitter or how much you're watching the news? Because it can be really debilitating sometimes. Some people feel that way, but
it is debilitating, and there's only so much of it that I can take, and I think probably people in this country feel that way right now. So I try to stay completely informed, but I try not to get too obsessive, compulsive about it, and but I am thinking about what involvement I can have as a citizen as we move forward to sort of get our country back on track, be it supporting the right candidates, causes, environmental movements, whatever it happens to be, and lending my celebrity and giving my money to causes that I think support peace and humanity and nonviolence.
That's great. Well said. Speaking of moving forward, how have you thought of how many seasons you want to stay Selena Meyer?
38.
It's great.
Yeah.
I think we'll stick around for 38 seasons.
Oh, good.
And hopefully have more of these chats come Emmy time. So we look forward to seeing you on Emmy night, and no curfew for you. So better put those party
I'm up
shoes
all
on.
night.
Yeah.
Up all night. Yeah, it's going to be cool. I really can't wait. No, I think I'll be in bed early, regardless. Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Congratulations. And thank you guys so much for watching. For the latest on Veep, be sure to check out THR.com, and we'll see you on Emmy night.